If you've ever wondered what the back end of a business looks like for course creators or those running memberships or anything like that, then this is the video for you. I am in the process of building out my membership. It's really more of a business system for members to streamline and automate their online education business. But I've built a ton of custom pages. I've built some apps and a custom dashboard for our members. It's not open for another 2 weeks, so I am still pre-populating the content that's going to go in here, but really is more of a system rather than a library dump of resources. So I thought today I would show you some of what I've built so that you could get an idea of what goes into something like this. So let's get started. So we're going to start with the member dashboard, default Thinkific dashboard, or a dashboard that they share with general people who are, maybe they purchased a course from me in the past or a workshop or a template or something like that. All of those people go into the regular student dashboard, but this is specifically for members of the collective so that they have their own experience. So it's not the same experience as someone who is not part of this community and collective. So this is what the dashboard looks like. So for this particular dashboard, I actually used one of Rob Galvin's power-ups called Dash. I think it's called Dash. And so I configured some of it with some custom stuff and some of it sort of out of the box. So this is what it looks like for members when they log in. So most importantly, we want to welcome, tell them they're in the right spot. The very first thing that's going to catch their eye are the live workshops. So this is a huge part of the collective is weekly support calls. So one week it's a workshop, the next week it's a Q&A. The next week it's a workshop, the next week it's a Q&A. And so I want them to be involved with this because if they choose to, but hopefully they will, because this is really where the work gets done. These aren't just watch and learn workshops. These are implementation workshops. So we want them to know at a glance everything that's available to them as a collective member. And so this is a big part of it. So right here, it shows them at a snapshot what are sort of the next four events coming up, and we manually update this as there's new events added. So it just kind of gives them the snapshot, a little bit about this. I've used GIFs here because it makes it a little bit more engaging, so they can flip through here and see the different workshops and Q&As, live events that are happening. Okay, so let's look at what else is in this sort of main part of the page, because the idea is we only want to highlight the things that are really important. Okay, so keep in mind as well that this isn't finished, right? There's iterations that are going to be done leading up to the actual opening of the doors for this. So this is the guided paths. So this is the easiest way for members to be able to say, hey, that's my biggest problem. And that will lead them into the guided path for that thing. Okay, so these are all clickable and it takes them where we want them to go for that particular problem or path. And then down at the end, there is a calendar that is embedded in here where they can view all of the live events as well. So if we click one of these, we're going to see what's here. It tells them the link to join will be available on the morning of the event. They'll also get an email then as a reminder, and here's the link to join. So that's basically all that's on the homepage. I do not want to complicate it. I do not want it to be overwhelming. I can see this is flipping too quick, so there's one thing I need to fix. But again, this is a work in progress. So on the left-hand side here, we're going to start with the Pulse. So the Pulse is actually an app that I built, and the idea is they're going to check in with this app once a week. Okay, so here's the app here. I've just done a couple of test people in here so you could get an idea of what this is. This took me a few hours to build in an afternoon last week. The idea here is that they can actually see their growth, momentum, and what they've done since being in the membership, right? So as they're learning these systems, as they're learning these automations, as they're learning to run a scalable online education business, they're able to track their progress here, which is great for them because it keeps them engaged in this process. So welcome back, Jen. So it immediately welcomes them in. Let's celebrate your progress. So this is how many hours you've reclaimed since you've joined. This is your revenue impact, and this is how many systems or automations you've built. It's also got a stress versus confidence, so they can kind of see as they go along, is my confidence going up and my stress going down? What does that look like? And then this is their time saving trend, so they can see how much time they're saving each week with the systems and automations and support that they're getting in the collective. And then down here, we've got their toolkit. So every week, and I'm going to show you this, they log their progress. They can also log the new tools that they have built. They can also log the new tools that they have added to their toolkit, things that they have learned, tools that they have learned how to use. So if they're ever in doubt about what could I use for this, they could actually go into their toolkit and go, oh, I could use Zapier for that, or I could use Kit for that, or I could use, Napkin AI for that, or whatever it is. And then this has got a sort of a revolving list of their recent wins and transformation, so they can see, because that's part of the problem as an entrepreneur, is that you don't know how far you've come, right? You're not journaling every day how far you've come. So this gives them a snapshot of all of the things that they have overcome, any obstacles, any wins, any skills gained, etc., in a quick snapshot. Okay. And so to log their progress, they're going to click here. And we're going to ask them things like, how much time have you saved? What new automations have you built? What's your stress level, your confidence rating, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just a quick check-in form that they can use to gauge their progress and to track their progress. And then over here on the left, we've got the leaderboard. So as members are completing this, we have a few things that they can then, and this is accessible to all members. So it doesn't give any kind of exact numbers for each person. It just marks them on their progress here. So most consistent, meaning most consistently tracking this, we've got who's in first place, and this will give you the top 10 in that place, and that will revolve on a weekly basis depending who's done what. This is who's reclaimed the most time, who's built the most systems and automations, how many total hours have been reclaimed from all the members, how many total automations have been built, and how much revenue have the members generated in their own business in that time period. And then community words of the week. So this is what some of the people in the collective are saying about how they're feeling about things. So it's sort of a word cloud down here to help keep them excited and inspired and see what the sort of temperature gauge of the others in the collective is. So I love this for being able to keep them engaged and to be able to track their progress as they go along. Okay, so that's the pulse. Then we've got the community. So in the community, I have a number of spaces which are part of the free community, but there are 2 locked down spaces. And again, this is on Thinkific. I'm using Thinkific Community for this. So we've got one for our Launchpad participants. So that's a 6-week program that they go through to learn to build their Thinkific site out and launch at the end of the 6 weeks. So there's a private space for them and there's a private space for the collective members. So if you're part of the collective, you are in with your own peers who are working through the same kinds of things that you are. And so it's a place for them to have conversations and to reach out for support if they need it and so on. So that is the community. So then we have the guided path, which is basically this. They choose where I'm stuck, and then it takes them into a particular path. So it's a personalized learning path for them. Okay, and then we've got our calendar, which basically links them down to this section here. Then we've got our events and replays. So that's basically just set up like a course in Thinkific here. And it starts out at the top with the calendar so they can see at a snapshot what's coming, what's been, what we've done in the past and so on. And then for each one of these, there is basically 2 lessons set up. Now they won't see the replay lesson until we put the replay up. So some of these are in draft status right now. And so collective members wouldn't see that. They would only see like the live Q&A. And when they click on that live Q&A or the live workshop, this is what they see. So it's a very custom looking lesson, we'll call it. And it's to the point, tells them exactly what they need to know, and there's a link here to join the live call. The workshops are very similar style, and these were actually created using CCOS, which is one of Rob Galvin's I'm not sure if it's in the Power Up suite. It might be a completely separate product. It's called CCOS. And so I built these with that to have a more custom experience for our members in here. And so how this will work is we'll have this live Q&A up before the Q&A, up until the point of the Q&A. And then when we load the replay in, this will no longer show, because we don't want them having this and having links to live calls when those are already done. So that will disappear from here, and we will replace it with the Q&A instead. Okay, we also have something for Claude Cowork, so they go through this process to learn how to use Claude Cowork, how to use the skills that we provide to them. And so this is a work in progress. This is too text heavy for me. So there's going to be diagrams and maps, and it's going to be much easier to follow for them. But this is the idea here, is that they're going to learn how to use Claude Cowork or Claude in general in a better way, because part of what we do in the collective is we have a lot of skills, Claude skills, that they can use with Claude to streamline their processes. And so we want them to get set up properly in Claude in order to use those skills. So this is actually part of the onboarding process here. And then we have our skills library, which basically is all of our Claude skills that we're building out right now. And each one of those, again, these were created using CCOS. And so it just tells them exactly what it is, what it's for, and if it's a skill that they can use, they can download the user instructions down here, and they can download the skill file as well. And right there and then they can take that over to their Claude Cowork and use it to streamline a system or automate something in their business. All right, then we have a submit your request. So if you're a collective member, you actually have the ability to request tutorials, templates, skills, anything like that that they would like to see in there. And so this is just a tally form that I've hooked up here. And so we keep track of those requests and we build out the collective based on what kind of requests we're getting here. Then there's a link to my one-on-one coaching if they'd like to do that. We also have the get a month free. So this is a page. It's a custom page that I built, which tells them all about the get a month free. So if they're in the collective and they refer a friend to come into the collective with them, then for every friend they bring in, they get a month free in the collective. So it's a great way to kind of spread the word and for people to work through this. You know, sometimes we have friends who are also entrepreneurs who are also sitting behind a computer alone, and we want to help them out. So if they send the link to a friend of theirs and that friend joins, they get a month free, and there's no limit. So if they bring 12 people in, they'll get 12 months free. And so this is a custom page that tells them how it works. Here's the 3 steps to do it. Here's the fine print. And then when they click ready to share, this is a pre-populated email that's going to open in their Google or Yahoo or Outlook or whatever they use. And I've already pre-populated with this with what we want it to say. So here's the subject line and here's the body of it. So right there, and then the idea is we need to make this very easy for them to be able to invite a friend. We need to be able to make it easy for them to move through this experience, because a lot of my audience are not particularly tech savvy. That's not their lane. That's my lane. So I need to keep this as concise and easy to navigate as possible so they're not lost in this process. And then there's a link to become an affiliate. They can link to look at their profile and change their password and things like that and sign out. So it's very streamlined. It's very easy to find what they're looking for. And it's very guided based on what they want to do in that moment when they log into their dashboard. Now, those are just the pages on Thinkific. There's also multiple courses. That's Thinkific's container for what this is, you know, like our live events and replays, for instance. Thinkific calls this a course. We keep this in a course, and it's just the easiest container. And so the guided paths are in a course. This is in a course. There's multiple of these also happening. So all of those had to be set up as well. And then you've got your other parts and pieces like Zapier. So when someone cancels their subscription to the collective, cross our fingers that doesn't happen too often, but if they do, they're going to come into Zapier, and Zapier connects two things that wouldn't normally connect. I have another Zap set up, so when someone enrolls in the collective, they go onto this spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet kind of controls different things about the collective to know that those are the active members. So it'll go up, it'll look at Jen Smith on that spreadsheet, and it'll say, oh, she's an active member. Okay, she's canceled now. So then it puts in the date that she canceled. So on the date that she canceled, she can no longer access any of the collective assets that were available to her. Okay, so that's what happens here. And then we split on into two paths. And this is just for a fallback. So what's going to happen most times is that the member was found on that sheet, and then it adds a tag to them in Kit, which sets off a automation. I'll show you that in a second. And then it creates a subtask for us in ClickUp, which is our project management system that we use. And there's a couple of manual things that we want to do at that time as well. So this is a flow of what happens when someone cancels their membership with us. So speaking of that, let's go over to Kit, because Kit is what I use to do all my emails, my email marketing. And so this is the automation that is set up in Kit. So basically, when that tag is applied, because Zapier applied that tag when they canceled, when that tag is applied, we remove the tag active member because they're no longer an active member. We send an email here with an exit survey, and then they just get added to our general list at that point. There's also an automation set up for when they come into the collective. So they're tagged with active member. We untag them as general list because we don't want them getting promos or random emails that we might send out to our subscriber base. We don't want them getting that. We want this to be a very intentional experience for them. And we take them out of the nurture sequence. So if they happen to have signed up for a freebie and they're in a nurture sequence, email sequence, and then they join the collective, we don't want to continue to nurture them because now they're in the collective. It's a different experience. We remove them from the wait list so that if they were on the wait list, they're not going to get any wait list emails anymore. And then we send the onboarding sequence. So it's a series of emails to get them in, get them familiar, get them using what's in there, get them engaged in the process. So that is what we've got set up in Kit for when you join and if you cancel. So as you can see, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. And this is really the part that you never see on the front end. You just see this nice looking landing page and you sign up and you don't know any of these things that are happening in the background. But it's important as a course creator or a knowledge expert to kind of number one, get a sense of what happens behind the scenes, what needs to be set up, how they need to be connected or why they need to be connected, what kind of experience you want for your members. And generally, you'd want to map this out before you start building any of these assets out. And number two, I hope it inspires you to kind of look at your own ecosystem and what you're doing and what that experience is like for your members or course participants or whatever you're doing in your ecosystem. I hope it inspires you to think outside the box a little bit and always come from the place of how is that member or that participant going to experience this? Because at the end of the day, that's what they'll remember. What was the transformation and what was the experience? So as I mentioned, the doors to the collective open in 2 weeks. If you'd like to join the VIP waiting list, I'll put the link in the description below. And until then, take care. See you soon.